Hi, welcome back to the Z-fari video book. If you're reading along with us, we're starting on page 27. But if you're just interested in listening, that's fine too, and we'll begin chapter 3. BeBe woke up early. He had to be to platform 119th Street South by 8 a.m. And although it was only 2 miles away from Mrs. McGee's boarding house, he decided to leave at 7 a.m. It was a nice day, so he wore jeans and a camo t-shirt. Mrs. McGee was in the kitchen washing dishes when BeBe got downstairs. "Do you have time for breakfast, Trooper Duvalier?" she asked. "Please, ma'am, call me BeBe. Almost everyone I know has called me that for as long as I can remember," he said. "And a cup of coffee would be great, thanks." Peyton McGee nodded and smiled and said, pouring steaming coffee in a mug on the kitchen table, "I thought you might be excited on your first day. There's cream in the little pitcher and sugar in the bowl. Your lunch is in the brown bag in the refrigerator, and I made you a bacon and fried egg sandwich to take with you. You might want a bite to eat on your walk to work. I'll be making fried chicken for dinner about 6. "Thank you. I need to go shopping for some things," he told her. "When's your day off?" she asked. "The day after tomorrow." "Well, if you can wait until then to shop, I'll drive you up to the patrol store in Wichita. Then you can get some of what you need cheaper at the PS. I need some things from the big city, too," she smiled. "That would be great. Thank you, ma'am." "You've got a lot to carry to work with your rifle and ammo and such. I've got an old canvas rucksack that you could use until you get your own." BeBe nodded, and Mrs. McGee went into the mudroom and returned with a battered brown canvas sack. "Here you go." "Thanks again," BeBe said. He went to the refrigerator and put his lunch in the rucksack, took a box of shells out of his gun case and loaded them in too, pulled his Glock out of his belt behind his back where he had stuck it for convenience and added it to the sack. He took his Marlin out of the gun case and adjusted his sling so that he could wear his rifle on his walk to work. "You can leave your case behind the door in the mudroom today." Mrs. McGee handed him his breakfast wrapped in a paper towel and said, "Have a good first day at work." "Thanks," BeBe said. "I'll see you before dinner," and walked out the door. BeBe took his time, and his walk to work took about 15 minutes. He was early, but didn't want to go up to the platform just yet. He sat down under a tree about 15 feet from the staircase and inspected his rifle, loaded it, and checked it again. He did the same with the Glock. He pulled his papa's belt knife out of its sheath at his waist and ran his thumb lightly down the surgically sharp blade. BeBe heard a motorcycle headed his way, and a second or two later, a tall man riding a BMW skidded to a stop right in front of him. The rider took off his helmet, and BeBe recognized Smith from the day before. Smith took off his helmet, opened the visor, pulled down the passenger foot peg on the left side of the bike, slid the helmet onto the foot peg, and pulled a gun lock from his pocket. He threaded the cable from the gun lock through the visor opening and through the hold in the foot peg and then back into the gun lock. He secured the lock and closed the visor. No zombies or anyone else was going to get his helmet. Smith reached over the motorcycle seat and pulled a lever-action rifle from the scabbard. He leaned it against the bike. "Morning, Smith," BeBe said. "What kind of Beamer is that?" Smith smiled, proud of his mount. "It's a 1990 R80 GS. It'll go anywhere I need to go in Z-land, and on the road all the way to Maine or California. It was my daddy's. He gave it to me when I joined the patrol." He reached to the holster at his right hip and pulled a revolver out. Checking to see that it was loaded, BeBe noticed that Smith wore a big Bowie knife in a bandolier sheath across his chest and a smaller knife in a leg sheath at his right calf. This was a bad man. "Is that a Marlin 336? Smith asked. "Yeah, my papa gave it to me when I came to join the patrol," BeBe explained. "Good gun. I decided that I needed a little more firepower after I'd been on the wall a while, so I ordered a new Berti 1873 rifle and a new Berti Army revolver, both chambered in .357 Magnum. Less trouble to reload." "That's something to think about," BeBe said quietly. "Want to climb the stairs and meet Ned Kelly?" "Ned Kelly? I thought he died in the 1880s. Smith laughed. Most folks don't make the connection. Ned's real name is almost unpronounceable, Conchobhar. Most folks just say Connor. But as soon as Ned was old enough to hear the tale of the bushranger's life and death, he insisted that his first name was Ned." And he turned to the staircase. "Coming up, Ned," he shouted. They got to the top of the staircase, and there stood a short man. He must have had to stand on his toes to reach 5 feet. With wild, curly, brilliantly orange hair and a full, bushy beard. He wore a red stone in his right ear, and when he smiled, a golden incisor gleamed from his mouth. He wore purple and black camo military-style pants with pockets everywhere, and a matching camo button shirt with button pockets. BeBe noticed a revolver at his hip, and a strange combination of hammer and axe in a sheath on his other hip. "Ned," Smith said, "this is BeBe, my replacement." BeBe stuck out his hand and nodded as he and Ned shook hands. Ned smiled and said, "Such is life. Now that you're here, I've got a date. I'll see you tomorrow, BeBe. Smith, good luck wherever you go." He turned and slung his AR-style rifle over his shoulder and bounded down the stairs. Smith laughed. Ned is the patrol's satyr. He's only interested in women taller than he is, so just about any female over 14 is eligible for his attentions. But he's reliable and fearless and ferocious in a fight. When he's not working, he's hard to find, unless you hear men fighting or women screaming and then laughing. The patrol has an agreement with the local and state cops. When they arrest Ned, they deliver him to the patrol station in the Witch. Let's show you around the platform. Border Patrol Platform 119th Street South was a little smaller than the one behind the Border Patrol station in Wichita, where BeBe had taken his marksmanship test and shot his first zombie. There were more of the same sandbags at the edges of the platform that stuck out over the wall into Z-land here. There were 2 winches, one on either side of the staircase that led to the top of the wall. Smith opened the storage shed and showed BeBe the paraphernalia a zombie hunter required. "A flamethrower?" BeBe asked, amazed. "I thought those went out of service after Vietnam." Flamethrowers aren't regulated, and the government doesn't even consider them firearms. A couple of commercial vendors built new designs for clearing brush and flashy scenes in movies, but you're basically right. The DoD took them out of the arsenal in 1978, and the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons in 1983, and the prohibitions or restrictions on the use of incendiary weapons in 2008 effectively put the kibosh on them as a weapon. The bigger armies use thermobaric weapons, and the Russians built an RPG that delivers napalm. The IRA was fond of them during the Troubles, and the North Koreans like to use them for executions, but other than clearing the snow in Washington, D.C. during the winter of 1998, they were a thing of the past. But since they're basically legal, it was easy for the patrol, after the zombies appeared, to visit some folks at gun shows and buy up tanks and ignition systems on the cheap. Smith showed BeBe the solar-powered chargers for the troopers' cell phones and for the emergency cell phone kept in the shed. There was also a red phone, a landline direct to the patrol station in case of emergencies. There were also a lot of keys. Smith grabbed 2 sets of keys off the lower hooks. There was an identical row of 5 hooks, each holding a set of keys on the hooks right above it. Smith showed BeBe how to use the chemical toilet and the various knobs and faucets at the sink and in the shower. "Come on," Smith said, "here's the fun part." Smith went to the edge of the platform to 2 handrails and spun a large metal wheel on what looked like a submarine's hatch that lay between them and lifted one side. BeBe looked down and saw a sturdy steel ladder. "Sometimes," Smith told him, "we have to leave the platform and enter Z-land." As he deftly slipped down the ladder, BeBe was just a little less nervous, remembering that Smith carried his knife and a .357 revolver, and resolved to buy a shoulder holster for his Glock as soon as he could. BeBe followed Smith down the ladder, his heart thudding against his chest. He was in Z-land now. No wall to protect him. Smith turned toward a lightning-blasted tree and turned right, ducking behind a clump of bushes, and BeBe lost sight of him for a few seconds. BeBe hurried to follow. When BeBe caught sight of Smith again behind the bushes, Smith was fiddling with a good-sized padlock on the first sliding door of 4 on a steel building. If there had been a gas pump out front, it could have been a mechanic shop in any little town anywhere in America. There were solar panels covering the roof, but no windows. Smith opened the door, motioned for BeBe to follow, and stepped inside. By the time BeBe got to the door, Smith had flipped a switch, and a bank of work lights illuminated what BeBe now realized was a garage. These are the vehicles we use when we have to do a job in Z-land. A Ford F450 8-foot bed turbo diesel V8, a 4-wheel drive GMC Sierra with a 6.2-liter V8, and a V6 Toyota Tacoma, Smith pointed down the row. And Ned built his own diesel pickup for himself. "He built this?" BeBe asked. Smith laughed. "Ned always says you can't buy happiness, but you can build a truck." And that's pretty close. Basically, it's an 86 GMC K30 1-ton pickup with a 6.5-liter long block diesel engine, a Banks Sidewinder turbo system, and 3-speed automatic transmission, 6-inch lift front and rear suspension, 17 by 8.5-inch wheels, and 42 by 14.5 R17 tires. "Rolling coal," he says. Smith continued. There are sheds like this every mile or so all along the inside of the wall. Every month or so, the patrol sends a convoy out from the gates to refill the diesel and gas tanks that are built into the foundations of these garages. If you look in the middle of the back wall, you'll see 4 nozzles on long fuel hoses, 2 green for diesel and 2 blue for gasoline. The troopers manning the platforms do the maintenance on all of the vehicles they use. We've always had pickups, but if you want to add a dirt bike or two, let Sergeant Earhart know, and chances are something will show up in a few months. There are 2 sets of keys for each vehicle in the storage shed on the platform, and 2 sets of keys to this garage. Don't lose them. These vehicles can save your life. They did a couple of times for me. BeBe nodded. There was more to this job than he'd imagined. Let's get back to the platform, and if there isn't anything I've forgotten and you don't have any more questions, my tour is over. Smith almost skipped back to the ladder after he let BeBe lock the garage and take the keys. They climbed up the ladder, and BeBe spun the wheel on the hatch cover until it was secure. That's what you need to know to work on the platforms, BeBe, Smith said. If you need help, use the cell phone or the red phone. You don't have to save the world by yourself. Most of the time, this job is long periods of boredom, punctuated by moments of terror. Sally will be here at 4 o'clock on the dot. She's never late. Sally? Sally Gooden. She's a tough little cookie, raised by mountain folk on a hillside in West Virginia. She got tired of corn farming, and once the zombies appeared, decided that she'd like to raise a little hell in the flatlands. You'll like her. Everyone does. Smith gathered up his rifle and said, if you find anything that you think belongs to me, keep it. I just want to forget that I was ever here. You'll understand once you've been here a while. He stuck out his hand and BeBe shook it. Smith walked down the stairs and never looked back. And BeBe was alone. The sound of Smith's motorcycle's exhaust grew softer and softer. BeBe looked over his domain. He sat down in the camp chair under the umbrella and found that it swiveled. Smith had left a pair of binoculars on a small table to the left of the chair. BeBe picked them up and looked through them out toward the horizon.